Hi there. My name is Britt Cowart, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the Grief Services Director at Full Circle Grief Center. And I'm here with you this evening to discuss coping with anxiety as part of your grief. This is part of our virtual conversation about grief series. So um, I'm so happy that this is going to be recorded and hopefully provide you with some insight maybe into your grief and how to best manage and hopefully reduce some of your grief-related anxiety. So I do just apologize ahead of time. You may see me look down at my outline and my notes. So, I will do my best to look right at you, but just wanted to let you know that. I'm also going to be sharing a book with you this evening that I think could be really helpful, and I'm basing some of the information I'm sharing with you is in this book as well. So I will start by saying anxiety is a common part of the grieving process. Grief and anxiety are inextricably linked and connected. So if you are experiencing anxiety as part of your grief experience, know that this is normal. It is also very common. So you are in good company, and it is one of the reasons why we are doing this topic, just because anxiety and grief really go hand in hand. Some experts even call anxiety the missing stage of grief. Experiencing anxiety is common after loss because we are thrusted into a vulnerable space. Obviously, probably arguably one of the most vulnerable places we can be, and stages in our life is when after we have experienced the loss of a loved one. So loss is the perfect conduit for developing anxious symptoms because of various factors. I'm going to mention some of these to you right now. Increased vulnerability, which we already spoke about. Pre-existing conditions such as anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues or diagnoses. Forced confrontation of our own mortality. Often when we experience a significant loss of a loved one, we then are forced to look at ourselves and our own mortality. This can definitely increase anxiety. Thinking more often about losing others that we love. And also just life's precariousness and unpredictability. This is definitely more, we might have more awareness of this after we experience a significant loss. So these variables all contribute to bringing more fear and anxiety to the surface in various profound ways. There are many ways to cope with your grief anxiety, which makes it highly treatable. So that's the good news. Anxiety is one of those symptoms where there are many tools and strategies to help reduce and minimize anxiety-related symptoms. So first and foremost in grief is making space for your grief, allowing yourself to explore deeply your grief emotions and really being able to process what you're feeling. Oftentimes in grief, we are experiencing complicated emotions, multiple emotions, and exploring grief on a deeper level where you can find ways to talk about your loved one and how grief impacts yourself and safety in the world is really important. Um, really creating space for this to happen. Remembering your grief journey is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So give yourself this space and time to delve into this grief journey, knowing that it's going to require patience and giving yourself that grace and kindness to take your time for the healing. Cognitive behavioral treatment strategies. You can learn more about these methods by researching online on your own. There's a wealth of information out there, and also reading self-help books. Certainly reading the book that I'm going to recommend here in a little bit. Um, those, can give you lots of good tips and ways to, again, minimize your anxiety and really give you specific cognitive behavioral strategies to do so, which is a proven way to help minimize anxiety. Also seeing a therapist, a professional who is trained in cognitive behavioral theory and experienced in working with these strategies to help minimize and reduce anxiety. Our therapists here at Full Circle are certainly adept at using these cognitive behavioral strategies to manage anxiety related to grief, for sure. Also, meditation, grounding, and relaxation techniques. These are a useful and critical tool to address your anxiety during your grief journey. So sometimes you may be, find yourself being unfamiliar with these types of tools. There are, again, many apps and lots of information out there. So I would certainly encourage you to explore these if you're grieving, and especially if you are experiencing anxiety-related symptoms to your grief. So when we don't make space and take time for our grief, it often manifests in anger and anxiety. As a culture, we need to be open to explore fears and ask questions about death, so we can heal and better manage our anxiety around our grief. Something we say here at Full Circle is you have to feel to heal. So certainly, again, letting yourself explore your grief feelings in a safe and protected space, wherever you can do that, will help you to, in the end, manage your anxiety in healthy ways. The sooner we can do the necessary work of moving through all the many facets of grief, the sooner we can experience healing and relief from anxiety. So Claire Bidwell Smith is the author of Anxiety, The Missing Stage of Grief. This is the book that I was talking about, and I do want to read you the 10 tips and ways that she lists and talks about way in depth in this book to manage and reduce your grief-related anxiety. So the first one is learning a little bit about how anxiety works. So become informed about your grief, about your grief-related symptoms, and about your anxiety related to your grief. What does it feel like? What does it look like? How is it showing up for you? When you take time to really think about and explore your anxiety, you can then better describe it to yourself, to a friend, to your family, to a professional, and then in turn, hopefully be able to find the right tools for you. What works for everybody is gonna be different, and it's usually a combination of tools. So I'm gonna mention these kind of 10 ways to cope, but knowing that some of these tips may speak to you or work for you better than others. Anxiety is the mind's response to a fearful situation. So, reminding yourself that this is a normal reaction and that it's actually our body's way of managing stress. Sometimes just knowing this fact that anxiety is normal and what our body is doing is actually helping us during this time of stress. So maybe just knowing that information can help keep you calm. checking in with your grief. So, one reason we develop anxiety after a loss is due to unprocessed grief, not giving ourselves the time and the space that we talked about a couple minutes ago to check in with yourself about what you're feeling and how you're doing, what you need more of, what you need less of, are you coping healthily, and just processing your grief and those big feelings. So, sometimes there are emotions or memories that you may be avoiding out of fear or pain. So, if you are avoiding, that is going to be contributing to your anxiety. So, again, giving yourself space either on your own or with a friend or with a professional to be able to share your feelings and discuss your anxiety so that you can get support. Making amends. One of the reasons we get stuck in our grief and anxiety is because there's sometimes something left unsaid or undone or something that we may feel guilty about related to a loss. Not always, but this can happen. And again, this feeling of not having if maybe having these guilty feelings or regret can lead to higher anxiety in your grief. So giving yourself time to make amends, there are various ways to do that, whether that is talking about your guilt or your regrets out loud to, again, a supportive person, a professional, writing about this guilt or about these complicated regrets that you may be feeling. And it's also never too late to seek forgiveness, right? Or to try to find reconciliation. So knowing that this is all part of making amends, and making amends can help reduce your anxiety. Embracing resilience. Finding ways to begin moving forward in your grief journey and healing. Sometimes we resist this because we feel maybe we are leaving our loved ones behind if we are, quote, getting better. But what we know is that we don't necessarily get better and just move on. We hold our loved ones in our hearts and we find ways to move forward with them and to keep their memory alive and find ways that we can connect with them that has meaning. So just in order to keep living, it is finding ways to build a meaningful life without your loved one. And I know that may sound really difficult and painful, but that is what embracing resilience is. And by finding and exploring ways that you're going to create this new normal that will over time help reduce the anxiety. Writing your way through it. That's the next tip. There is serious power in journaling and writing your way through grief. I would like to, as a side note, recommend you check out on our website under resources. We have an article on the power of journaling for healing. And it's a short article. It gives a little bit of why and how journaling can be such a powerful and useful tool in the grief experience, and then gives you some prompts and ways to get started with this technique. So definitely check that out. It is well researched and proven that journaling and writing can help release tension and just positively impact you psychologically, physically, emotionally. So whether you are an experienced journaler or have never journaled or written before, either way, this article can help you get started. So check that out. Understanding how your brain works. I spoke to this a little bit earlier, but cognitive behavioral therapy is an intrinsic part of getting a handle on grief-related anxiety and any type of anxiety for that matter. So making sure you're understanding how your thoughts work and how those are connected to your behaviors, how you can replace some thoughts or reframe your thoughts. These are really important techniques and strategies to be used in order to help reduce your anxiety. And they take practice. So often, whether you are learning on your own through a self-help book or reading information online about cognitive behavioral strategies related to grief-related anxiety, or whether you are seeking help from a professional, any of those ways can be useful ways to learn about these techniques. The power of meditation. So we talked about before meditation and grounding and relaxation. Again, this is a surefire, one of the surefire ways to combat anxiety. It may sound like a soft approach, but believe me, it is not. Again, it is well researched in our world of grief counseling and the benefits. So definitely, freeing yourself from those pervasive anxiety thoughts and being able to immerse yourself in the moment and being mindful of trying to find calm and relaxation. And we can often do this through mindfulness, through meditation, and through grounding techniques. So also definitely check out that virtual conversation about grief, which is on, we have one that is on grounding techniques. And it's 5 to 10 minutes long, very short, direct, simple, to the point, but it will give you hands-on strategies to do to help combat anxiety, reduce tension, and minimize your anxiety. Exploring your connection to your loved one. This one is integral to healthy grieving and helps quash anxiety in return. Finding ways to develop this connection with your loved one is huge, and it will bring you peace and acceptance and even compassion towards your grief experience. So there is a lot of information on meaning making and what we can do to stay connected to our loved ones and therefore promote our healing and our integrating the loss into our life and moving forward with building a meaningful life after your loved one is gone. Getting your own affairs in order. So we mentioned facing our own mortality can increase our anxiety, and putting things in place, getting your affairs in order, taking steps to take care of your own business so that when you die, you can feel good that your affairs are going to be in order and going to be taken care of. So this can certainly reduce anxiety. Lastly, but not least, is don't go it alone. So grieving is definitely meant to be shared. It is important to find your companions in grief. So whether that is a supportive friend or a group or a individual grief counselor or supportive professional, those are all ways to seek support and find someone or someone's to help you companion with you during your grief. So this is a really important piece of reducing anxiety and isolation and not feeling alone in this experience. Grief can be a very isolating experience. Doesn't have to be, but we do often feel isolated in our grief and after a loved one has died. So really reaching out and seeking support and resources. So I hope this was helpful tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed spending time with you. You may be watching this actually in the morning or the afternoon or evening. So whenever you're watching it, I happen to be taping it in the evening, but whenever you're watching it, I hope it does bring you some awareness and insight into your own grief experience. Please, if you have any questions or thoughts, reach out to me. You can call me at 912-2947, extension 107. And my email is Britt, BRITT, at fullcirclegc.org. So I would be happy to hear from you. I am also the person that gets the grief inquiries for our individual grief counseling services. So if you are interested in exploring one-on-one grief counseling with us, certainly give me a call as well. So thank you, and definitely check out this book. It is a wonderful read. It's just really goes in depth into this anxiety piece, which we're talking about, which again is so normal and so common in grief, but really important to get a handle on so that you can deal with your grief in healthy ways and not spin out of control. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.